Welcome to Diplomatic Channel this week. I am Amarachi Ubani. We're taking a closer look at security in Nigeria, especially as it concerns two foreigners killed during the week by their captors. On Saturday, the body of Franco Lamolinara, the Italian, touched down at Italy's military airport, and an autopsy was conducted. Both men were killed by their captors, but the latest findings tell us that Franco was shot at close range, so it could not have been during a shootout that he died. But it is possible the foreigners' captors shot them dead when they got wind of the fact that Nigerian and British troops had them in a corner. And then it's been 1 year since we saw these pictures. It was during this time last year that Japanese were in national mourning following devastating 9.0 magnitude earthquake which triggered a tsunami. As Japan remembers, so does the rest of the world.
U.S. troops in Afghanistan have been placed on alert following the killing of 16 Afghan civilians by a U.S. soldier during the weekend. The soldier, believed to be a staff sergeant, is reported to have walked off his base at around 3 a.m. on Sunday. At one house in Najiban, 11 people were found shot dead and some of their bodies set alight. 3 of the victims were said to be children. President Barack Obama phoned President Hamid Karzai to express condolences, but according to Mr. Karzai, the massacre is unforgivable. And nearly 50 people have been killed in Syria's city of Homs in an attack by pro-government militia, hours after UN Arab League peace envoy Kofi Annan ended his 2-day mission to Damascus. The government acknowledged the deaths but blamed armed terrorists. Hundreds of families have fled the Kam El Zaytun area of the city after reports of the attack in their neighborhood overnight. Meanwhile, it's been 4 days now since Israeli airstrikes have been pounding Gaza. 21 Palestinians have been killed since fighting began on Friday, with 65 others injured. Israel says at least 140 rockets fired from Gaza have struck Israel, seriously wounding 2 Israelis. The U.S. has condemned the rocket attacks as cowardly, while the Arab League has called the Israeli airstrikes a massacre.
Welcome back. It is a story that's still developing. Italy has revealed the second hostage killed by Boko Haram. That's Franco Lamolinara was shot to close range, and yet diplomatic row ensued between Italy and Britain over the failed rescue bid of the foreigners who had been held since May, as Italy wondered why it had not been informed about the operation. According to the British Foreign Office, it was not obliged to divulge information about the operation because of the sensitive nature accorded it.
It was supposed to be a covert operation only known to the British and Nigerian governments, but a quite hurried plan soon turns awry as the 2 hostages captured by the men believed to belong to Nigeria's terrorist sect Boko Haram are killed in cold blood, as autopsy on Franco Lamolinara, one of the hostages, revealed. A diplomatic row ensued after British Prime Minister David Cameron confirmed the incident. The Italian government sought details on the raid, which Prime Minister Mario Monti said was carried out without his prior knowledge. President Giorgio Napolitano said the botched raid was despicable. The feeling was not lost on the people. Unlike its usual mode of operation, it is not known what may have led to the kidnap of the 2 men or why they were kidnapped so long only to be shot. But the reasons are not far-fetched for any terrorist group or organization. Both men had been working for a construction company and were seized from their accommodation in Berlin, Kirby. Their captors in the video were said to have made demands and threatened to carry them out if they were not met.
Now, Boko Haram has had a modus operandi, which is to target large groups of people using the most deadly weapon possible. I sought to know from our guest this week, Mr. Olufemi Tewobola Francis, a retired military officer, if it was possible the group was being influenced by another. We're talking about Al-Qaeda. All right, well, thank you for joining us, Squadron Leader Olufemi Tewobola Francis, for joining us on Diplomatic Channel. Let's begin with the latest that's happening. You're aware of the story. 2 foreigners were kidnapped by men possibly believed to be Boko Haram in May last year, and now they've been killed. And the latest coming out is that the body of the Italian, which arrived in Italy yesterday, has been autopsied, and it's been found that he had 4 shots, 3 to the chest, 1 to the head. How does this information help us with the investigations here in Nigeria?
Yeah, it further goes on to confirm the fact that we are dealing with a very serious terrorist group here. People who are suicide bombers, who carry bombs around and are ready to die with the bombs. All what they are interested in is that wherever their target is, they have to, there must be deaths and influx of blood. So I'm not surprised that even before the rescue operation began in that place, that those people, the Italian and the Briton has been killed by these people. They shot at close range. I watched in the tape, even one white missionary that they killed by cutting his head. I watched a tape like that where somebody brought this person down like a ram and cut his head and put the head at his back. People can do that. We go to an extent to do anything, and we better know that we are in for a very serious time in Nigeria, and the government better begin to do something very serious about it.
Okay, but we see a new pattern of Boko Haram here. I mean, the usual style is to find a large group of people and then to detonate a bomb in the midst of them. But now we're seeing kidnapping, we're seeing abduction, we're seeing murder. I mean, this is not particularly Boko Haram's style. Is it possible that there's an infiltration of Al-Qaeda in the north?
Well, when you look at the strategy of Al-Qaeda and that of Boko Haram, and you compare the two, you will see that they are birds of the same feather. And when you see somebody who is behaving like you in another nation, you maybe for some time have been looking for an opportunity also to unleash some terror on that nation. Maybe everything you are doing in the nation has publicly condemned your activities too, maybe your terrorist activities in the past, and you have been looking at an opportunity to get into that place, and you see people that now rose up, and the transigent group that rose up and is doing exactly what you are doing in the Western countries. They can also link up with them. They can create a link with them. And kidnapping in Nigeria, I'm sure, is no more. Is a lifestyle now. A lot of people get kidnapped for ransom, kidnapped for several things. So if Boko Haram begin to do that, I won't be surprised.
But what's the catch?
Well, I think that is the mistake we are making here. You see, Boko Haram talked about Western culture. They detest Western culture. They say something like that from the inertia, and I think they are still following that through. And there are a lot of we have to look at the sponsor. Who are the sponsor of Boko Haram? Who are the people that are behind them? Are they people? Who are these people who stay in the darkness and they are throwing stones into the light? The government of our country have to look beyond how they are looking out, find out these people. And I know they know them. They are part of them. President Goodluck said that some of these people are in the government which he belongs. Which he heads. They are in the house. They are in the police. They are all over the place. So he should bring them out. You find out that they might be, they kidnap a Briton and they kidnap an Italian. Well, they may have problem with Italy, with the British too, because some of the problems we are having in Nigeria, you know that somebody have just, not long ago, the British have been trying to assist Nigerian justice system to do things, to make things right. Some people that are here and they were cleared of certain offenses have been convicted by the British government. And if we do, like I said, we don't know the sponsors of these so-called Boko Haram people and the people who are behind the kidnap that happened, they might have some issues against the government of the British government and the Italian government too.
Okay, well, every terrorist group has a style, but really abducting people, posting videos on the internet, it's more like Al-Qaeda. Is it possible? Does this confirm that Boko Haram does have links with Al-Qaeda?
Well, it is possible, because when you begin to do whatever you are doing, you try to find links in areas where you can get better assistance. Well, I do believe, because Al-Qaeda, they have their base also in the north, around the Mediterranean. So I believe they could possibly and easily infiltrate the ranks of the Boko Haram and use them as a vessel to unleash terror in Nigeria. It is very possible.
Well, people living up north must be living in fear now that the north is no longer safe. Any moment, any time, somebody could come up with a bomb and detonate, and a few people just die. But how do we ensure that how can people living up north learn to live peacefully despite the danger or the dangerous environment that they're living in?
Well, it is not even about the north alone now. It's about the whole country, Nigeria. Because we have to know that we are right away sitting on the keg of gunpowder. Because if we do not do something about the transitions of Boko Haram in the north at this time, they are sooner or later, they are going to spread to other parts of the country. So it devolves on the government to actually look beyond the activities of Boko Haram and find out those who are behind them, call them to a round table, find out exactly what their problem is, sit down with them, dialogue with them, so that they can, all this can come to an end. Otherwise, we are facing disaster.
Well, with what is going on in the country, I'm reminded of a similar situation in Somalia, where Al-Shabaab makes it unbearable for the government in the country. I see a similarity here. Are we seeing Nigeria becoming, one of those dangerous hotspots in the world?
Well, any society that is not ready to secure, any society that is unable to secure, that does not have the infrastructure on the ground to fully secure its people, can become, sooner or later, anything could happen to them. Anything could happen to them, because if a group rises up and said, this is our problem, we don't want this to, this is what we want, this is what we do not want, and nobody is asking them, why don't you want this? Why do you want this? Why don't you do it like this? You see, they will try to find expression in provoking violence. They will try to, just like Boko Haram is doing now. In the past, we have what we call Matasine, and the rate at which this evil is being perpetrated is more than before now. But you see, you can't control the degree. What I'm saying is that initially, all these things could have contained if Boko Haram people, those who are involved, had been, if government had been able to look for them, find them, and make them to sit down and speak to them and come at it, a round table conference where there will be a dialogue and a conclusion could be arrived. All these problems will have. But if we don't do this, you can be sure. In the newspaper I was reading, was it yesterday or the day before yesterday, Ghana is already threatening. They are saying that when Nigeria sneezes, that they catch cold. If you have 1 million Nigerians now going into, running for shelter in Ghana, Ghana itself will be in trouble. So, but how do we stop this? It still revolves around the government, being a government that has the will to speak to those people that are around it. The people that are around it. This is started somehow. And they have to look for a way. Government cannot say that it doesn't have a way of settling a security problem in a country where he governs.
Mr. Tawabola Francis, thank you for speaking with us on Diplomatic Channel.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Japan's Emperor Akihito, Empress Michiko, and Prime Minister Yoshihiko Noda led the nation in memorial of the thousands who died in the 9.0 magnitude earthquake that triggered a tsunami last year. And it seemed just like yesterday when it happened. The quake also triggered another disaster that threatened to envelop the country.
A moment of silence and prayers mark 1 year since an earthquake and tsunami killed thousands and set off a radiation crisis that shattered public trust in atomic power and the nation's leaders. Emperor Akihito, whose health has been failing lately, and Empress Michiko were in attendance. The minute of silence is observed all over the country at 2:46 p.m. local time for when the quake and tsunami hit. It is still too painful to remember. Even employees of nuclear plant operator Tokyo Electric Power Company observed a minute of silence as protesters gathered outside the power utilities headquarters on Sunday to mark the first anniversary of the earthquake and tsunami. The Fukushima nuclear plant is owned by TEPCO, where reactor meltdowns triggered the world's worst nuclear crisis since Chernobyl. Slow progress in drawing up plans for the tsunami-damaged and radiation-contaminated region is deepening the misery of survivors, about 326,000 of whom are still homeless, including 80,000 evacuated from the vicinity of the Fukushima plant. While the government declared the reactors had reached cold shutdown in December, the country lives under a cloud of anxiety over the long-term health effects of radiation. Politicians and bureaucrats drew fire for the chaotic response to the crisis at the tsunami-wrecked Fukushima power plant and their failure to seize the moment and tackle the myriad of ills that have dogged Japan for the past 2 decades. But memorial for the dead spanned beyond Japan. Residents of Paris gathered at a Human Rights Square with the iconic Eiffel Tower in the background. They observed a minute silence at 5:45 local time when the quake struck. The Japanese community in New York came together on Saturday to remember and honor the victims of the quake. Several hundred New Yorkers parked the pews at the First Church of Christ, scientists in Upper Manhattan, for a memorial.
And we also send our strong message to those who are living in affected area that we haven't forgotten you. Together, we can overcome and recover Japan.
The twin disaster claimed nearly 20,000 lives, with 3,000 more unaccounted for.
For our feedback this week, we're taking 2 sets. One for your response to the Nigeria-South Africa deportation row, and the other for North Korea's new agreements with the United States. That's a wrap on the program this week. I am Amarachi Ubani. To contact us, write to any of the addresses showing on your screen. Have a great week.